The Girl in the Cage. In the middle of a dark and cold alien prison ship, everything was silent, except for the sound of heavy boots and metal doors slamming shut. The place smelled like rust, oil, and old blood. Bright red lights blinked across the halls, and the prisoners sat quietly in their cells, afraid to speak. In one corner of the ship, inside a small metal cage, sat a girl. She looked about 16, maybe younger. Her hair was dirty, her face was pale, and her eyes were not normal. They had a strange silver glow, like stars trapped behind glass. The other prisoners called her the Broken Girl. "She's been here too long," one man whispered. "She doesn't talk, doesn't move much. I think she's not human anymore." But she was human. Her name was Elira. At least, that's what she remembered. She had been in this place for a long time. She didn't know how long exactly. Days, months, maybe years. Every day felt the same. The guards, tall, cruel alien creatures with long arms and sharp voices, would bring food once a day. They never spoke to her. They only laughed. She had no friends. No one cared about her. No one ever showed her kindness. Until one day, someone new arrived. The door to the cell block opened with a loud clang. Two guards dragged a man into the hallway and threw him into the empty cage next to Elira's. He hit the floor hard, coughing and groaning. The other prisoners leaned forward to look. Another human. "He won't last long," someone muttered. Elira didn't move. She just watched from behind her messy hair. The man sat up slowly. His face was bruised. His arms had burn marks, probably from a shock baton. He looked around, confused. Then, he saw her. For a moment, their eyes met. She expected him to look away like everyone else. But he didn't. He looked at her like she was real, like she mattered. That surprised her. "Hey," the man said softly. "Are you okay?" Elira didn't answer. Her voice hadn't been used in weeks. The man smiled a little, even though he looked tired. "Name's Jace. I'm guessing talking is not your thing." Still, she said nothing. But for the first time in a long while, her heart felt warm. The next day, the guards dropped food again. The prisoners rushed to grab what little they got. Jace looked at the small piece of dry bread in his hand. Then he looked at Elira. He slid half of it through the bars of his cage and pushed it toward her. She stared at it like it was a trick. No one had ever shared food with her. She looked at him, confused. "You need it more than I do," he said simply. Elira slowly took the bread. Her hands were shaking. She brought it to her lips and took a small bite. It tasted plain, but tears filled her eyes. She looked at him and whispered one word. Just one. "Thank you." Jace blinked in surprise. "You do talk," he said with a smile. That night, something strange happened. Elira sat close to the wall of her cage. Her hand rested gently on the metal. She was thinking about Jace, about the bread, about his kindness. Her fingers twitched. The metal under her hand began to melt, just a little, like warm butter. It changed shape slowly, quietly. Her eyes glowed brighter, and the wall shimmered. She quickly pulled her hand back and looked around. No one had noticed, not even Jace. She stared at her fingers, breathing fast. She didn't remember much from before the prison. But deep down, something was waking up. A memory, a feeling, a power. Was this who she really was? She looked at Jace again. He was asleep, breathing quietly. He didn't know it yet, but he had just changed everything. He offered her kindness when no one else did, and Elira would never forget it. The secret weapon. The prison ship floated silently through the cold darkness of space, far from any star, any planet, any help. Inside its metal belly, terrible things were hidden. Experiments, secrets, pain, and one very quiet, very special girl was beginning to wake up. Jace didn't sleep well that night. The hard floor and freezing air weren't the worst part. It was the silence, heavy and strange. He kept thinking about the girl next to him, about her silver glowing eyes, and how she had said thank you. It was just one word, but it had more weight than anything he'd heard in a long time. The next morning, the guards marched down the hallway. Their armor clanked as they passed each cage, tossing small food packs. One guard stopped by Elira's cell and sneered. "Still alive, little rat," he hissed. She didn't respond. She just looked at him with calm, glowing eyes. Something about her stare made the guard uneasy. He frowned and moved on. Jace watched her closely. She hadn't touched her food. She just sat with her knees up, arms wrapped around her legs, staring at the wall again. The same wall she had touched last night. "Hey," Jace whispered. "Elira, right?" She didn't look at him. "I saw you melt that wall." Her head turned fast. Her eyes widened. "I wasn't sure if I imagined it," he said. "But now I know. That wall, it changed." Elira looked scared. "You can't tell anyone," she whispered quickly. "If they find out, they'll take me back to the lab." Jace frowned. "What lab?" She closed her eyes and shook her head. "I don't know everything. My memories, they come in pieces, like a broken mirror." Jace leaned closer to the bars. "Tell me what you do remember." There was a long pause. Then Elira spoke. "They took me when I was a child. I don't know how old I was. I just remember lights, machines, voices that weren't human. They put things in my head. They told me I was a weapon, the failed one." Jace blinked. "You're not a failure." She looked at him again. "You're the first person to say that." For the next few days, Jace and Elira spoke in secret, mostly when the guards weren't watching. She told him bits and pieces. She didn't eat much. She didn't sleep much. But when she did sleep, she had dreams, strange dreams filled with stars, fire, and voices calling her name in fear and awe. One night, Jace was woken by a loud scream. He jumped up and looked around. Elira was still asleep, but she was shaking. Lights above her cage flickered wildly. Her hands were glowing. "Elira," Jace called. Her eyes opened suddenly. A burst of light exploded from her cage, and every light in the hallway died. For a few seconds, everything was dark. Then emergency lights came on. Red, flashing. Alarms buzzed. Footsteps echoed in the distance. "What did you do?" Jace whispered. Elira was breathing hard. "I don't know. I couldn't stop it. Then we need to act fast." But it was too late. The guards stormed into the hall, yelling in their alien language. They pointed their weapons at Elira's cage. One of them shouted, "Get the shock collar." Elira's eyes filled with terror. Not again. Not the collar. Jace jumped forward. "No, leave her alone." A guard smashed his baton against Jace's cage. Electricity hit his chest and knocked him down. He screamed in pain. Elira stared at Jace, then at the guard. Her fear turned to rage. "No more." She stood up. The floor beneath her cage began to crack. The guard raised his baton again, but this time he never got to swing. A shockwave burst from Elira's body. The air rippled. The metal walls shook. The guard flew back, crashing into the opposite wall. Lights exploded. Sparks flew from the ceiling. Then, silence. The other guards ran, terrified. Jace coughed and looked at her with wide eyes. "Elira, what are you?" She looked at him with glowing eyes, brighter than ever before. "I'm not sure, but I think I was made to destroy things." "No," Jace said, still catching his breath. "You saved me." Elira looked at her hands. They locked something inside me. Something powerful. I didn't know it was still there. Jace pulled himself up. "Then it's time we find out what else is hidden inside this place. And we get out." She nodded slowly. Yes, but I won't leave without you. Her voice was soft, but stronger than before. And in that moment, Jace understood something important. She may have been built to be a weapon, but because of his small kindness, she was becoming something else. Something human. Something dangerous. Something unforgettable. Escape plan. The prison ship was no longer calm. The hallway where Illyra exploded with power had been sealed off. Guards whispered to each other. Cameras were turned off. Even the aliens were afraid now. They had seen what she did. They called her a mistake, a danger, and worse, a forgotten weapon. But Illyra wasn't thinking about power. She was thinking about escape. In the silence of the damaged hallway, Jace sat in the corner of his cage, rubbing his burned shoulder. Across from him, Illyra paced inside her cell. Her silver eyes were sharp now, full of thought. She was no longer the quiet girl in the corner. I can break the wall again, she said. Jace looked up. Like last time. No, she said. This time, I'll do it right. I've been practicing. He raised an eyebrow. Practicing? When? Every time the lights go out, she said with a faint smile. I test the metal. I test myself. The energy is inside me. I just need to guide it. Jace stood. And after you melt through the wall, then what? I find the lab, she said. The one where they did this to me. I think there's something still there. Something important. Jace nodded. Okay. Then we plan. Over the next few days, they worked silently. When the guards passed, they acted weak and tired. When alone, they whispered. Illyra explained the map she remembered from the lab, the way the ship's corridors twisted like a spiral. She told him about the security patterns, the guard rotations, the red doors that only opened with certain wristbands. Jace studied everything, she said. He wasn't a soldier, but he was smart. He had escaped 2 alien camps before, using only a spoon and a battery. This time, he had something better. A living weapon who didn't want to be a weapon anymore. But they weren't the only ones watching. A prisoner from across the hall had been listening. He was tall, with 4 arms and green skin that shimmered in the light. His name was Kriv. One night, he leaned toward the bars and spoke in a deep voice. You shouldn't trust her. Jace narrowed his eyes. What do you mean? She is not what she thinks she is. Kriv said. That lab, your people were not just victims there. Some humans worked with the enemy. That's a lie, Jace growled. Kriv didn't blink. Is it? Ask her how she survived when no one else did. Jace turned to Illyra. She was quiet. Illyra? He asked softly. She sat down, staring at the floor. I don't remember everything, but I've seen flashes. Blood. Screams. A fire. I was the only one they pulled out. Jace felt a chill. Do you think they let me live? She whispered. Or used me, because I was useful. The room fell silent. Then she looked up at him. I'm not proud of what's inside me, but I want to do something right now. I want to stop them. Jace nodded slowly. Then we do it together. That night, it began. Illyra pressed her hands to the back wall of her cage. Her eyes glowed brighter than ever. Energy pulsed through her fingers. The metal hissed, bent, and melted into a black hole. Jace moved fast, slipping through his bars. His lock had been broken days ago with a loose wire, and helped Illyra out of her cage. Which way? He whispered. She pointed left. They ran through the hallway, avoiding cameras. Illyra shut down motion sensors with a flick of her hand. Jace used his memory of old tech to jam a door before it slammed shut behind them. But as they turned the corner, they froze. 3 guards. One raised his weapon, too slow. Illyra stepped forward, eyes glowing like twin suns. Her hand flicked. The weapon exploded into sparks. The guards ran. Jace stared. Remind me not to make you angry. They'd reached a lower level, a darker, quieter place. The lab. The door was marked with a symbol Elira remembered from her dreams, a burning star with wires wrapped around it. Project Starfire, she whispered. That's what they called me. The door slid open. Inside was a cold room filled with old machines, broken tools, and flickering screens. In the center was a metal table, burned and cracked. Elira walked slowly toward it. Her hands shook. I was here, she said. This is where it started. Jace looked at a broken monitor. It flashed weak, green letters. He tapped the side and words appeared. Sub-GCC number 7. Starfire Unite. Status. Unstable, but reactive. Under the monitor was a file. Jace opened it. Inside were photos of Elira, younger, wires in her head, glowing eyes full of fear. And at the bottom, a note. Subject reacts emotionally to kindness. Memory triggers increase power surges. Possible weakness or possible strength. Jace looked up. They knew, he said. They knew kindness made you stronger. Elira's voice trembled. They tried to break me. But you did the opposite. Just then, alarms rang again. A voice echoed through the lab. Contain the weapon. Do not let her reach the reactor. Jace grabbed her hand. Time to go, he said. Elira nodded. Her eyes burned like stars. This was no longer just an escape. It was the beginning of a war. The chase begins. The sirens blared louder now, their shrill cries echoing down the metal corridors. Elira and Jace sprinted through the dimly lit hallway, their footsteps drowned out by the alarms. Behind them, the sound of heavy boots and clanking armor grew closer. The guards were coming. Jace felt his lungs burn as he pushed himself to keep pace. His mind raced just as quickly. The photos in the lab, the files, they all pointed to one terrifying truth. Elira wasn't just some forgotten prisoner. She was something far more dangerous, something the aliens feared so much they had locked her away and kept her alive for years, hoping she'd never awaken. Elira's glowing silver eyes flicked back toward Jace. We're close to the hangar, she said, her voice firm. Once we get there, I'll do something to stop them. What something? Jace asked, not breaking his stride. Her jaw tightened. I don't know yet. They rounded a corner and nearly collided with another set of guards. These weren't ordinary soldiers. Their armor was thicker, their helmets marked with a strange, glowing symbol. Elite enforcers. Before Jace could react, Elira stepped forward. Her hands moved, quick and sharp, and the air in front of her shimmered. One of the guards fired, but the energy blast bent sideways, slamming into the wall. Another guard rushed forward with a shock baton, but Elira raised her hand, and the baton melted in his grip. Jace stood frozen for a moment, watching in awe as Elira moved with precise, almost instinctive control. She wasn't just defending herself. She was dismantling the guards, one by one. Each motion was smooth and deliberate, as if she had been trained for this her entire life. She turned back to Jace, her glowing eyes still bright. Let's go, she said. He nodded and followed her as she broke into a run again. The elite guards lay behind them, groaning in pain, their weapons destroyed. The ship's design was confusing. Long, twisting hallways crisscrossed each other, with identical walls and doors that all looked the same. Jace had memorized part of the stolen map, but even with Elira's guidance, it was hard to tell which direction led to safety. The guards weren't making it any easier. More footsteps echoed in the distance, and the ship's automated defense systems began to activate. Metal panels slid down over certain doors. Small hovering drones with blinking red eyes emerged from hidden compartments in the ceiling. Drones, Jace shouted. Elira glanced upward and raised both hands. The drones faltered, their lights flickering, and then one by one, they dropped from the air, their metal shells collapsing like crumpled paper. Sparks rained down as they hit the floor. We can't keep running like this, Jace panted. There's too many of them. Elira slowed for a moment, her eyes scanning the corridor. We need to find a maintenance shaft. Something off the main path. Jace racked his brain, trying to remember the map's layout. Then he spotted a door ahead with a faded yellow stripe. There, that should lead to an access tunnel. They reached the door and found it unlocked. Inside was a narrow passage filled with pipes, wires, and a faint blue glow from emergency lighting. The air was warmer here, and the low hum of machinery filled the space. "It's cramped, but it might buy us time," Jace said, pulling the door shut behind them. "If we can stay off the main corridors." A loud thud cut him off. The door shook. The guards were trying to break in. Elira stepped forward, her hands already glowing. "I'll hold them off." "No, wait," Jace said. "If you use too much energy, I can handle it," she said firmly. Her voice was calm, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt. The door began to dent inward. A few more hits, and it would give way. Elira pressed her palms to the door, and it suddenly glowed red-hot. Metal shrieked as it twisted and melted. When she pulled her hands away, the door had fused to the frame, creating a solid, impassable wall. She swayed slightly, breathing hard. That should slow them down. Jace grabbed her arm to steady her. "Are you okay?" She nodded quickly. "I'm fine. Let's keep moving." The access tunnel led them deeper into the ship. Pipes and wires snaked along the walls and ceiling, casting strange shadows. They found a ladder leading up to another level and climbed quickly. Jace's arms burned with effort, but he pushed through, his mind focused on the goal, the hangar. If they could reach it, there was a chance, however small, that they might find a way out. But as they emerged into another hallway, they realized the guards weren't the only threat. A strange, low rumbling sound echoed around them. The floor vibrated slightly under their feet. "What is that?" Jace asked, his voice tense. Elira tilted her head, listening. "It's coming from the engine core. We're near the reactor." Before they could take another step, the hallway lights flickered, and a deep mechanical growl filled the air. From the shadows emerged a tall, spider-like machine with glowing red sensors. Its metal legs clanged against the floor as it moved forward, blocking their path. Jace's mouth went dry. "Is that one of their security bots?" Elira nodded, her glowing eyes narrowing. "It's worse than the guards. These machines were built to hunt people like me." The bot raised a long, claw-like arm. A beam of light shot out, cutting through the wall behind them. "Run!" Elira shouted. They bolted down the corridor, the bot's legs clanking loudly behind them. It moved faster than any guard, and was relentless. The beam of light sliced through the air again, narrowly missing Jace's head. Elira turned abruptly, raising her hand. A wave of force shot from her palm, slamming into the bot. It stumbled, its legs bending awkwardly, but it didn't stop. Instead, it recalibrated, its sensors glowing brighter. Jace grabbed her wrist. "We can't fight that thing. Keep moving." They turned another corner, desperate to find an escape route. The bot's claws scraped against the walls as it pursued them, its growls growing louder. As they ran, Elira's mind raced. She had fought off guards and drones, but this was something new, something designed to hunt her kind. She could feel the energy pulsing inside her, but she didn't know if it was enough. Her eyes met Jace's for a brief moment. He was still running, still keeping up despite everything. She remembered his kindness, his steady resolve. "I'll figure something out," she thought. "I have to." And so the chase continued. She was made for war. The relentless sound of the security bot's legs scraping against the walls echoed through the metal corridors. Its glowing red sensors scanned every shadow, every corner, and its claws left deep gashes in the ship's structure. No matter how fast Elira and Jace ran, it stayed close, always hunting, always adapting. Jace could feel his heart pounding in his ears. His lungs burned with every breath, and his mind raced for solutions. The stolen map had burned into his memory, but it wasn't enough to save them now. They were out of options. "Elira," he shouted, trying to keep pace with her. "That thing. It's not stopping. What are we going to do?" Ahead of him, Elira kept moving, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. She didn't answer at first. Then she glanced back over her shoulder and said, "I'll stop it." Jace stumbled but caught himself. "What? How?" "I don't know," she admitted, her voice steady despite the chaos. "But I have to try." He wanted to argue, to tell her she didn't have to face it alone. But the determination in her voice stopped him. She had changed since that first day in the cage. The quiet, broken girl he had met was now a force of nature. They reached another intersection, one that was not on the map. Elira turned right without hesitation. The air grew warmer, thicker. The faint hum of machinery became a low, steady roar. Jace realized where they were headed. "This leads to the reactor core, doesn't it?" he asked, his voice rising in concern. Elira nodded, her pace never slowing. "If I can get close to the core, I might be able to overload it. That bot won't follow us into a meltdown." "You'll destroy the whole ship," Jace said. "That's the idea." Jace grabbed her arm and pulled her to a stop. "No, that's suicide." She turned to face him, her glowing eyes narrowing. "Do you have a better idea?" Jace looked at her, seeing both resolve and unease in her glowing silver eyes. "You don't have to do this alone." She turned to him, a faint smile touching her lips. "You've said that before. And I'll keep saying it until you believe it," Jace replied firmly. "We're in this together." Elira glanced back at the reactor, then down at her own hands. For a brief moment, Jace thought he saw a flicker of doubt cross her face. "I know I can stop them," she murmured. "But the cost." Jace stepped closer, his voice steady. "We'll find another way. We don't need to destroy everything to win. We just need to show them what you really are." She looked at him, her expression softening. "And what's that?" "Not a weapon," Jace said. "You're human." Before she could respond, the door behind them slid open with a hiss. The elite guards poured in, more than a dozen, armed with heavy shock rifles and energy shields. Their glowing helmets and precision movements made them look less like soldiers and more like machines. "Stand down," one of them barked in the alien tongue. Jace's muscles tensed. He instinctively stepped in front of Elira, raising his arms. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." The guards didn't hesitate. They advanced, weapons raised, their movements coordinated like a single entity. Jace braced himself, ready to fight. But before he could act, Elira stepped forward. "Stop," she said. Her voice was calm, yet it carried an authority that even the guards seemed to notice. They paused, just for a moment. Elira's silver eyes flared, and the air around her shimmered. "I'm not the broken experiment you left to rot. I'm not your weapon anymore. I am free." The lead guard hesitated. "You are an unstable unit. You must be contained." Elira's gaze hardened. "Try." What happened next was unlike anything Jace had ever seen. Elira didn't just defend herself. She commanded the energy around her with precision and grace. The guards fired their weapons, but the beams bent away, curving harmlessly into the walls. Their shields crumbled as if torn by invisible hands. Elira moved with purpose, each motion controlled, each pulse of energy deliberate. The guards fell one by one, their armor sparking and collapsing as her power overwhelmed them. It wasn't chaotic destruction, it was mastery. She wasn't lashing out in anger. She was demonstrating control. Jace watched in awe, realizing that she wasn't just fighting back. She was proving to herself that she was more than the sum of her past. She was rewriting her own story, right here, in the heart of the ship. When the last guard fell, Elira lowered her hands. The room fell silent, except for the hum of the reactor. She turned to Jace, her silver eyes now calm, almost serene. "It's done," she said quietly. Jace stepped forward, reaching for her hand. "You're okay." She nodded, though her expression was solemn. For now. But this isn't over. They moved quickly, navigating the maze of corridors that led away from the reactor. The ship was in chaos. Without the elite guards, the regular soldiers were disorganized. Jace and Illyra encountered several patrols, but they didn't engage. Instead, Illyra used her abilities to disable cameras and jam communications. They slipped through the ship's underbelly, avoiding conflict as much as possible. As they ran, Jace's mind raced. They needed to do more than just escape. They needed to strike a blow that would inspire others, that would show the prisoners, human and otherwise, that resistance wasn't futile. "Illyra," Jace said, his voice urgent. "We can't leave yet. Not like this." She glanced at him, puzzled. "Why not?" "Because they'll just keep doing this," he said. "If we don't show them that we can fight back, they'll capture more people, experiment on more children. We have to make a statement." Illyra frowned, her glowing eyes narrowing. "What do you have in mind?" Jace stopped and pointed at a nearby display screen. It showed a map of the ship's interior, highlighting key systems. "We can hit their communications hub. If we can disable their long-range transmitters, they won't be able to call for reinforcements. And if we can get a message out, we could warn others." Illyra finished. "We could rally them." Jace nodded. "Exactly. Humanity has been scattered, defeated. But if they see you, what you can do, what we can do, they'll know it's possible to fight back." Illyra studied the map for a moment, then looked at Jace. "Okay, let's do it." They set off toward the communications hub, moving quickly and quietly. Along the way, they encountered more prisoners, humans and alien species alike, huddled in dark corners or locked in cells. Jace stopped at one cell, a group of ragged humans staring at him through the bars. "Who are you?" one of them asked. "We're here to change things," Jace said. "Hold on. We'll come back for you." They pushed forward, determination in every step. The comms hub was heavily guarded, but Illyra didn't hesitate. She used her abilities to create diversions, flickering lights, bursts of static in the guards' headsets, while Jace took out the guards with quick, calculated moves. They worked as a team, each relying on the other's strengths. Finally, they reached the control room. Banks of monitors displayed the ship's systems, and a large console dominated the center of the room. Illyra stepped forward, placing her hands on the console. Her silver eyes glowed as she reached out, not physically but with the strange energy inside her, interfacing with the ship's systems. "What are you doing?" Jace asked, watching as the console's displays flickered. "I'm sending a message," she said, "not just to the prisoners here, but to anyone listening. Anyone who still has hope." Jace stepped closer. "What are you going to say?" Illyra's voice was steady as she spoke. "That humanity isn't done. That we're still here. And that we will fight." The message went out. Across the ship, the prisoners heard her voice, clear and strong. Across nearby sectors of space, rebel frequencies picked up the transmission. For the first time in years, scattered remnants of humanity heard a spark of hope. Illyra turned to Jace. "It's done. They'll know we're not afraid anymore." Jace smiled. "You did it." "No," she said, her silver eyes shining. "We did it." She never forgot him. The ship's hangar bay was chaos. Alarms still blared, lights flickered, and distant explosions shook the walls. All around, freed prisoners scrambled to find any escape route, any vessel that could take them away from the nightmare they'd endured. Jace stood near the edge of the loading platform, scanning the crowd. His heart pounded, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of what they'd accomplished. They had done it. They had sent the message. The words still echoed in his mind. Illyra's voice, steady and strong, broadcast through the ship and into the stars. "We are still here. We are not afraid. Humanity will rise again." The effect had been immediate. The prisoners, once broken and hopeless, rose up together. They overpowered the remaining guards, overtook key systems, and now they were pouring into the hangar, climbing into alien shuttles, cargo haulers, and anything that could fly. But Illyra was gone. Jace had searched for her, calling her name, but she had vanished after sending the message. His chest ached with worry. He had seen the strain in her eyes after the fight, the toll her powers took on her. She had promised she wouldn't face it alone, but now she was nowhere to be found. "Jace," a voice called out. He turned and saw Kriv, the tall alien prisoner who had warned him before. Kriv limped toward him, clutching a wound on his side. "The humans are leaving. We must go before they bring reinforcements." Jace shook his head. "Not without her. I have to find her." "You can't," Kriv said, his voice heavy. "She made her choice." "What choice?" Jace demanded. "What are you talking about?" Kriv's golden eyes narrowed. "She said you needed to lead them now. She said she wasn't finished here." Jace's hands clenched into fists. He turned away from Kriv and ran, ignoring the chaos around him. He retraced his steps, back through the corridors, past the comms hub, and toward the reactor. His mind raced. Why would she stay? What was she planning to do? The closer he got, the more the ship shook. The air grew hotter, the vibrations more intense. The lights flickered and dimmed. By the time he reached the reactor chamber, it felt like the entire ship was on the verge of tearing itself apart. "Illyra," he shouted, his voice echoing against the metal walls. "Illyra, where are you?" He heard a faint sound, a whisper, a voice barely audible above the roar of the reactor. He ran toward it, climbing over debris and dodging falling sparks. Finally, he saw her. She was standing on a narrow catwalk, right next to the reactor core. Her silver eyes were glowing brighter than ever, her hands raised, energy pulsing through her fingers and into the core. The reactor was unstable, its once steady hum now a violent roar. The bluish-white light had turned an ominous red, flickering wildly as if fighting against her power. "Illyra," Jace called out. She didn't turn around. "You shouldn't be here." Jace stepped onto the catwalk, his movements slow and deliberate. "What are you doing?" Her voice was calm, almost resigned. "This ship can't be allowed to reach its destination. The message we sent won't mean anything if they catch us again. I'm making sure they can't." "You don't have to do it alone," Jace said. "You don't have to sacrifice yourself." Illyra turned to him then, and for the first time, he saw tears in her eyes. "I'm not the same as you, Jace. I've always known that. They made me into something different, something dangerous. If I don't stop this now, more people will suffer. I can't let that happen." "Neither can I," Jace said, stepping closer. "But we can find another way. Together." She shook her head. "I don't know if there's time." "Then let's make time," Jace insisted. "You said you weren't just a weapon. You said you wanted to prove it. Prove it now, by choosing to live, by choosing to fight another day." Illyra hesitated. The reactor core shuddered, sending another wave of heat through the chamber. Her hands were still glowing, her power holding back the meltdown, but it was clear she couldn't sustain it forever. Jace reached out, placing his hand over hers. Her glow dimmed slightly. "You don't have to carry it all," he said. "Let me help you." Tears streamed down her face. "You were kind to me when no one else was. I never forgot that. I never will. And I'm not leaving without you," Jace said firmly. "So let's find another way." With his help, Illyra pulled her energy back, slowly lowering her hands. The reactor's violent fluctuations began to stabilize. The light shifted back to blue, the hum becoming less erratic. She swayed, and Jace caught her, holding her steady. The alarms still blared, but they both knew they had bought themselves precious moments. Together, they climbed back down the catwalk and made their way to the hangar. The ship trembled, warning of impending failure, but it was no longer on the verge of catastrophic destruction. It was enough time for the remaining prisoners to escape, and for Illyra and Jace to get out. When they reached the hangar, the last shuttle was waiting. Kriv was inside, urging them to hurry. Elira glanced at Jace as they stepped aboard, her silver eyes dim but still full of resolve. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. Jace smiled, though he was exhausted. "Now we fight back. Not just you, not just me. All of us. Together." Elira nodded, her expression softening. "I'll never forget what you did for me, what you helped me become. And I'll never forget what you showed me," Jace replied. As the shuttle left the ship, speeding away toward the stars, Elira looked out the window. The ship she had been imprisoned on for so long grew smaller in the distance, its lights flickering like a dying star. For the first time in years, she felt free. Not because of her powers, not because she was a weapon, but because someone had shown her what it meant to fight for something greater, to fight for hope, for humanity. Elira closed her eyes, her hand resting lightly on Jace's. She didn't know what the future would hold, but she knew one thing for certain. She would never forget him.